Good day and welcome to the CNBC Africa special broadcast. I am your host, Zinati Guma. Now, the City of Johannesburg innercity launched its 84 properties project some years ago. The aim is to rejuvenate the city to attract more investment, create jobs, and create mixed-use inner-city precincts and accelerate service delivery through implementing infrastructure programs. Now, part of the strategy is the redevelopment of the Jewel City to continue with its plans to develop the Jabulani nodes, the construction of Mulapo Bridge and cater for long-distance minibus taxis, including cross-border long-distance bus facilities. Now, the overall goal is to provide quality, low-cost accommodation for residents, fast-tracking service delivery and develop and support SMMEs and cooperatives. COVID-19 did, of course, delay some of the progress. However, with many buildings that could be empty as employees have not fully returned to work and construction was put on hold during the hard lockdown. So what is the progress thus far and what does the future look like for the inner city development? Joining me for that conversation to delve deeper into that topic is Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Jeffrey Makhubo, Vikas Latakhan, the CEO of Colgro M3 Group, and Lusanda Nechitenze, the Development Impact Executive at TUHF, which is more commonly known as TUF. Thank you so much for joining me on this special program. Now, starting with you, Mayor Makhubo, I know that the Inner City Generation program was started because there were challenges that the CBD and surrounding areas faced. I just want to know, remind us what those challenges are again and how far the city has come since the inception of this program.
Thank you very much, and good morning to date to the panelists and to yourself. About 15 or so years ago, we realized that the inner city of Johannesburg, and indeed many inner cities, the southern part, the eastern bloc, Roodepoort, Midrand, they were in a state of decay. So this is not, the city of Johannesburg is not any different from any other big city in the world where the inner city is going to decay. Therefore, we then thought that we must start a process of the inner city regeneration, a block-by-block approach from the southern part of the city, the western part of the inner city itself, moving into the inner core and right up to the north and the east. So what we then decided to do, the mining houses right up near Westgate, block by block development of the city throughout the process. So this has been going on for about 10 or 15 years. In the process, we had the inner city charter. So that was put together by the city, put together by the partners, including some of the partners who are here on the call here, to upgrade the buildings, to re-attract business into the inner city, to promote trade, and then to understand that informality is part of growth of the city, of any inner city in the world. So we benchmarked ourselves with most cities in the world. However, the problems are persisting. The problems have moved into Braamfontein, Yeoville, Berea, moving towards Eastgate. But we think that this time will win the battle.
Now, Mayor, just to follow up, tell me about what the state the city was in when you took over and the targets that were put on the table, for the Inner City Generation program.
Well, my predecessors have done a lot of work, starting with Ntate Masondo, having an MMC of the inner city in the form of the former councillor Sol Cohen. Parkstown then continued the inner city property scheme to look at derelict buildings, to look at buildings that have been hijacked, to look at buildings that have now a different use, factories that are not being used, now they're being used for something else. Of course, the previous Mayor Mashaba focused on other buildings. So we got a process continuing, but the inner city is still in a very, very bad state. So we started an area-based approach where we have different nodes, Newtown, Braamfontein, the Metro Mall, the west of the city, the Marshalltown, and having these different nodes would represent different aspects of the city. There's the fashion node, Maboneng, in the eastern part of the city, the western part of the city towards Fortsburg, which would be the trading node and all that. Right up to Faraday, the intermodal, the Johannesburg intermodal transport facility, the GT that's now being built around the Park Station and all that, and the upgrade of Park Station to link all the transport modes, be it rail, taxis, buses, so that everything can interact, can interconnect in the city as people move out to Sandton, Rosebank, and other nodes in the city.
Now, of course, that we know that we can't talk about building the economy without involving the private sector. Vikas, I just want to talk to you about Cultivate M3's role in the city and also your partnership with the City of Johannesburg.
Yeah, thank you. And again, welcome, Honourable Mayor. I think where Cultivate played a role over the years is we specialise as being most probably the biggest integrated housing developer in South Africa. So what that means is we bring communities from different backgrounds together. So if you look at Fleur of Jabulani, even Southfields, which is literally, that's where that silver ball is, if you stand in the city centre, on the periphery of the city, and it's still seen as inner city redevelopment, to use all open spaces. We're not a developer that redevelop current old buildings. We like greenfields. We like land which ex-mining land, breaching apartheid barriers. We look at fear of connecting Florida CBD to Netherlands and bring everything together. So our experience over the years is, if you look at Jabulani, you take Jabulani, when we started there 12 years ago, there was a mall and a police station and fire station, very minimal other things. Today, there's a state-of-the-art theatre built that utilises the arts theatre. The new hospital has been constructed by the city over there. We've handed over more than 2,500 residential units. We're busy with infrastructure for more than 1,000 units, and we have under construction more than 500 units in that CBD. And it's all about bringing people closer to the job opportunities. I think the mayor spoke about the transport system. So the bus transport system the city has developed run right into Soweto through to Jabulani. If you look at our Fleur of properties, because of our partnership with the city, it doesn't just bring public transport to the periphery of the project. It literally takes it throughout the project. When Fleur of we have to walk further than 400 meters to get on a public bus transport. And I think that's important. It's all about living conditions. My view is always that if we can bring people closer to their place of work, save an hour in the morning traffic, save an hour in the evening traffic, two parents, one parent can spend more time with the families. If you look at the housing shortfall in South Africa, go and stand on the border of any informal settlement, 4:30, 5 o'clock a.m. in the morning, and see how many people are living for formal job opportunities. Sorry, that's not right. They need a better place to stay. They do earn an income. They need better living conditions. And what Cultivate is doing in partnership with the city is we bring fully subsidized houses in the same development up to R1 million house. And the whole idea is bringing back role models to society. It's not like we chatted before the call. People, as soon as you better yourself, you move into a better neighborhood. Unfortunately, there's never that role models for kids to look up to. And for us, the social aspect that's been developed with the city is very, very important.
And in the big provinces like Gauteng, we definitely know what it's like to sit in that traffic for an hour at a time. You talk about, Vikas, bringing fully subsidized houses to the City of Johannesburg. Just walk me through that structure.
Yeah, so what we, I think, formulated over the years of the city is that we bring private property, and the city assists us in Balkan Link infrastructure creation. And I had to quantify Balkan Link infrastructure. If you look at our Fleur of project, the most of the Balkan Link infrastructure that was created on that project and in the area by Cultivate is not for the Fleur of project specific. If you look at Westlake Road extension, creating a new access road into Soweto, where Soweto merely only have 3 or 4 main access roads, which, to your point, congested traffic. You work in the inner city and you have to travel from Soweto every day. It takes you 2 to 2.5 hours in the morning, 2 to 2.5 hours in the evening. The whole impact of that on family values, on people's morale is difficult. So we're trying to bring that together, and in that development, then we enhance, if you look at water supply, Fleur, for instance, had a big water reservoir and infrastructure creation. which feeds the whole area. The same Refleur substation that's currently under construction by Calgro, with all the assistance we got from the City of Johannesburg.
Indeed, we do want to build morale, employee morale, also by bringing employees, living closer to job opportunities. Now, over to you, Lusanda. I understand that TAF finances entrepreneurs. Just walk me through exactly what TAF does for entrepreneurs that want to get into, business in the city.
Thank you, and good morning again. Thank you for the opportunity. TAF has been involved in inner city financing for the past 18 years. We are, I guess, unlike Calgro, we don't have any subsidies that we rely on from government. So we are really leveraging private sector balance sheets to finance entrepreneurs that are in the business of providing affordable housing in inner city areas. That extends from the Joburg inner city, Roodepoort inner city. We currently now have a new program in Soweto through our new product called Umastandi. We also finance in Randburg CBD. I think that there's still a lot that needs to be done in that area, particularly the Windsor West areas. So basically, our financing is simple. We finance big developers like your Calgros. Well, not necessarily Calgro. They don't need money, I guess, from us. But we finance big developers and small developers. But our approach is that it's the small developers that we are supporting that are making the biggest difference, because it's in their smaller units and their smaller developments that they are contributing to affordable housing incrementally, that we are able to see change in the inner city on a precinct by precinct basis. And it brings the necessary competition, obviously, in terms of standard and quality of product that's being delivered. But also, more importantly, TAF prides itself in driving transformation and urban land reform in a meaningful way. So our financing targets PDIs, previously disadvantaged people, were not able to access finance from traditional banks. We have financed a variety of entrepreneurs who thought they will never be able to access such finance. And we're seeing a lot of impact, massive impact that these guys are contributing to the inner city space. And obviously, as Vikas says, it's through strategic partnerships, both with our private sector partners and, importantly, the city, that we are able to do what we're doing.
Lusanda, do you only finance, established companies? Can I come to you as an individual and ask for finance to maybe buy a building?
No, we finance everyone. We finance juristic entities. We finance individuals. We have financed, it's an old story, and I'm trying to avoid using it, but we financed a domestic worker before who had really nothing in her balance sheet, but had the passion to turn around the inner city, had the passion to provide quality accommodation for students close to the Doornfontein UJ campus. And we supported her, Ma Josephine, a couple of years ago. We have since financed many other entrepreneurs, as I say, currently with our Umastandi program in the township. These are ordinary South Africans that never imagined that they will be able to have access to R1 million on average a pop, for them to be able to provide 22 units on a stand that they either inherited from parents or that obviously they want to buy in the market. And we are supporting those guys. Obviously, there are some credit fundamentals that they must meet, clear credit record, etc. But, we have comprehensive training programs and mentorship programs that we run to support these entrepreneurs to be able to navigate the property management or property investment space. So it can be yourself, it can be Vikas, it can be the mayor himself, or not so much politicians. We try not to finance politicians, but yeah, it could be anybody.
Well, I'm glad to know that I can approach you guys and you will maybe try and help me. And of course, I was going to ask about the risk when it comes to the credit fundamentals that you did mention. And also, I just one last thing on you, Lusanda, is that how do you make people aware that, these services do exist? Because I can imagine that people like me don't know that you exist and they don't know that they can access this funding.
So, I mean, since inception 18 years ago, we have invested just over 6 billion rands in inner cities. And that's, as I say, on average, loans of anything between R1 million to 5 million to 30 million, depending on the size of the developer we are financing. And most of our clients come through word of mouth. So they would refer each other. We have a lot of repeat business from existing clients. We obviously are advertising a lot in our website and social media platforms, but that's not what we rely on. In the inner city of Joburg, if you walk around, you'll see there is signboards in every building that we have financed because we are proud of those investments. So you would, if you are an inner city person, you wouldn't miss tough because I guess it will be on your face. But if you're not, you said earlier you are a Sandton person, so I guess you would miss it in that way. But we advertise in all the necessary platforms. But our work really sells itself through our clients who are, referring new business, coming for repeat business, signboards that we have in the inner city, and that's how people get to know about us. And also a lot of our training programs that we do, we have a lot of our clients through that experience who then end up, sharing the word out there, and people come to know of us that way. But we are there. Our website is available for more information, so we are open for business.
And I did say off air that I'm hoping that my three panelists today will convince me to move to the city. Now, back to you, Mayor Makubo. Of course, we have to talk about the impact of COVID-19 because we do need to know where we can, rebuild, to build back trust and also these partnerships so that we can rebuild the economy. I just want to know what has the impact of COVID-19 been on, the City of Johannesburg, the projects that are in the pipeline?
COVID-19 has had a devastating effect on many aspects of the city. The projects of the city, the broader economy, the well-being of our people, the psychosocial effect on our communities. And we've seen a downturn on the economy. We've seen businesses closing. We've seen business offices being vacant. The vacancy rate is increasing, including in Sandton, even in the north. We've seen a few property owners coming to talk to us about the struggles that they have in collecting rents. But the effect of the hard lockdown on our projects has been very, very severe. I think Vikas would know that we had to, even in flare-off, we're trying to electrify a certain portion of flare-off so that we can hand over the units. In the 6 months, we had to stop the project because of the hard lockdown. And of course, on the fiscus of the city, the COVID-19 has had a devastating effect. So you can imagine that in order to invest like we do in the inner city, together with the partners that we have, Poma, the TAFs, and others that we have in the city, our interaction with business that's struggling in the inner city, COVID-19 has had a devastating effect. It delayed some of the projects that we were undertaking. It's delayed some of the strategies that we are undertaking because we want a clean and a safe city. So the cleanliness of the city and our safety programs, our integrated intelligent center, IOC, has been severely affected. Police cameras throughout the city to ensure that we have a safe city to attract investments. So COVID-19 has not been very, very easy on the city of Johannesburg and its projects.
Indeed, COVID-19 hasn't been easy, especially when it comes to construction. Vikas, you would know about that. And I just want to know, especially now with, the economy was already weak and COVID-19 has just made the damage even worse. What is the private sector's appetite in terms of going into the city and also partnering with the City of Johannesburg?
Yeah, thank you. I think private appetite is still there. I think business appetite is still there to deliver. And I think it's important to note that I believe the city's appetite to deliver on service delivery and specifically housing is still there. Yes, as Honourable Mayor just said, it has been challenged. It's been challenged by budgets, it's been challenged by the hard lockdown. Business have hurt. I think we all had various challenges over the years. I think we must also just go back somewhat pre-COVID, sorry if I may hijack the discussion, to say the South African economy went into COVID after effectively being in a recessionary environment for months on end. In fact, tongue in the cheek, the COVID hard lockdown gave South Africa the ability to go out of recession because of the post-lockdown growth. But everyone talking about what must the economy recover to before lockdown? We must go and ask ourselves, what must the economy recover with to January 2018? Because that's effectively where the benchmark is sitting. And I think that's a challenging part. Private business, I complimented the city earlier. I think the city has, through this whole period, tried to assist private developers. The city has tried to assist the communities to have better living conditions. I think there's been a renewed focus on better living conditions. If you look at your informal settlements, staying close together, how do you practice social distancing in those communities? And I think government as a whole, not only the city, has put a lot of focus on it. I think people like Tough and the amounts that was used earlier, as 1 million, 2 million, they played an immense role throughout this funding small developers to bring housing affordable to the public. If I might quickly touch on what's affordable housing and why we believe there's such a market. I've already said earlier, just go and stand in the corner of any informal settlement in the morning, 4:30 a.m. to 5, because those people don't leave like other people, they're home 6:37. They leave it way earlier. People saying, but hang on, COVID changed your living conditions, a lot more people working from home. That's correct for office workers, not for office cleaners, factory workers, contractors, construction people, mining companies, domestics was touched on. All those people still have to leave to go to formal job opportunity. So traffic is still, living conditions are still there. So what COVID has been providing positively is the interest rate cut. If you look today and you say, but hang on, don't go and look at 20, 25,000 Rand combined income. Let's look at 10 to 15,000 Rand combined family income. So what do I mean by combined income? It's husband and wife's combined income staying in a single house. So all of a sudden now, if you're a domestic and your husband happened to be a factory worker and you earn 10,000 Rand a month, firstly, you qualify for FLISP. Now, what FLISP is a finance linked individual subsidy program. National government had implemented a few years ago to bridge this gap between you've got fully subsidized house and a person or family that gets a house for free and a person that better themselves and earn 10,000 Rand a month will never get a house for free, will never catch up. So government breached it in a sliding scale, almost capital program where not the developers, the client qualifies. So if you earn 10,000 Rand a month, you qualify for FLISP subsidy of very close on 100,000 Rand. So all of a sudden now, if you look at a house or a unit or apartment of 400,000 Rand, which Calgary is developing and one or two other developers in town, one or two inner city developers, to say, but now you only need a bond of 300,000 Rand. All of a sudden, 300,000 Rand bond a month at prime +2, because depending on your credit record, and unfortunately, lower income groups, the credit records are worse than what it is in the high income groups. So go at prime +2. Don't try and get prime. All of a sudden, your bond there is 3,200 Rand a month. Now, 10,000 Rand combined household income can buy you a house of 400,000 Rand. Again, what's the indirect benefit of property ownership? And sorry, I need to come up for property ownership, not rental property. If you rent your whole life, you don't build wealth for your family. If you buy a house and you pay off a house over 20 years, you've got a house for your kids, for your family. You become this family home. And that's now affordable to many. And that's a one benefit. The 300 basis points or 3% prime reduction, interest rate reduction that was brought about by the Reserve Bank, benefit in human settlements, housing. And I think if we look at that, private sector's appetite is definitely there. Why? Because we don't only have to look at government. And people tend to say, yes, but service delivery is responsibility of government. Sorry, it's not. Not in a country which has been going through so much recessionary environments, not in a country where we know government budgets are under pressure. With respect, I don't want to be the mayor. He's got an incredibly difficult job because people look at him for service delivery, but he gets a cut from budget from National Treasury, and no discredit to them as well. The tax revenue collection is just not there. They have to cut somewhere. And he have to implement the budget reduction while he still have to do service delivery. So I think private sector's got a big role to play. And I think, as I said, the interest rate saving and the big housing shortfall I already spoke about gives private sector a lot of appetite for this market.
Indeed, Vikas, you're right. I also wouldn't want to be in the mayor's position right now. Mayor, it's fine. You can keep your job. Lusanda, I'm glad actually that, Vikas, you touched on the point of monetary policy easing, where the South African Reserve Bank actually cut interest rates last year to ease the pocket of the consumer. Now, Lusanda, since you guys finance entrepreneurs that want to go into the business in the city, I just want to ask, did you feel that interest rate cuts? Did your members feel that interest rate cuts, especially also taking into account that consumer pockets were tight? Were those, and also, credit fundamentals were shaky. How has COVID-19 impacted how you provide funding?
Well, we initially decided to move carefully, and we suspended new credit at the time when the first hard lockdown was announced. So we didn't finance any new assets from March last year to about October last year, because we wanted to see how the market kind of eases back into some sort of normalcy. But obviously the interest rate cut has come a long way to assist our existing client to have some savings in their servicing of their debt to us. And obviously even tenants who live in units that we have financed, the interest rate cut has helped them with their other obligations, because people have, car loans and etc. And that cut has enabled them to have a little bit of savings every month in their pockets. I mean, I won't lie and say COVID didn't have any impact, but what it did for us, it gave us an opportunity to get closer to our existing clients. We worked with each one of them personally on a case-by-case basis to understand how their assets are performing, to understand the challenges that they are facing. We then would extend repayment holidays to each client based on their needs. I mean, they don't obviously all have similar challenges, but I think it made it easier for the business to understand each and every building that we have financed, understand each and every client we have financed a bit closely than we did in the past. So there was a benefit to that. I think that also it made it obvious that, with inner city housing and the need through COVID for people to have ability to go outside for fresh air. It's bringing into the table the discussion around open spaces and parks in the inner city that are well maintained, so that someone can leave their unit in a block of flats and go play outside just to catch fresh air. And I think that these are some of the strategic partnerships that we are saying to the city we now need to start focusing on together. Because, I mean, we can't pretend that the wicked issues of crime and grime don't exist in the inner city. They still exist. So people were locked in their units because they couldn't go anywhere, but they couldn't even step outside their unit because of the condition of the inner city outside. So the issues of urban management are very important, so that when I am experiencing an affordable unit inside a well-maintained building, I shouldn't be afraid to venture outside into the street to walk into a Checkers down the road. And some of those challenges still exist, and that became reality for us. I mean, you have organizations like the Johannesburg Inner City Partnership that are doing a lot in trying to partner with the city to attend to basic things like cleanliness and, that the city should be welcoming to a visitor and someone who lives in the city. They are doing a lot around what they call walkable network, and where we are trying to say, pick a couple of streets and start cleaning them, making them pleasant, so that people and kids can have opportunity to play outside the units that we have financed. I think that this issue of a precinct approach, obviously Jewel City is doing that. Maboneng started a couple of years ago. I think we need to be deliberate about that with the city and strategically partner to say, how do we move block by block to start providing a pleasant environment outside the buildings, so that the inner city is attractive for investment. I made the point earlier that, Vikas speaks very well around the good work done with partnering with government through subsidy. But I think that if the city or government at large, if they want to make meaningful impact and have investment in the city, they need to attract balance sheets of private sector without having to put in anything from the fiscus. And for them to do that, I think the city just needs to focus on the basics. The basics being making sure that bylaws are implemented when they need to be implemented, that the streets are kept clean when they need to be kept clean, that people feel safe and welcome in areas where they live. And I think that the private sector will then quickly move in and invest in those areas. Because if we are to take this strategy of urban renewal, the mayor earlier spoke about how from the different political heads that have been around, how that has been a focus. And that's true. I mean, I've been working in the inner city for over 20 years now. And I remember in the time of Amos Masondo, he had a focused project of regenerating the inner city. He put in an MMC who was focused on the inner city. There was an inner city office, and there were programs that the city was dedicated in releasing buildings as well as taking care of urban management issues in the city. Better buildings and bad buildings programs came during those times. In the times of Tau, for instance, yes, that continued, but it didn't get as much focus and airtime as it did in the time of Masondo. And obviously some traction was then lost in that time. We had Mashaba coming in. He was politically trying to push this agenda forward. But unfortunately, my own view, and this is a personal view, I felt that he wasn't getting the necessary administrative support from the officials in the city to make these things happen. And now we are pleased that the mayor is now also, Mayor Makubo is also saying he wants to put this thing forward. And all we are asking from him is that it shouldn't be a political project. It should be an administrative project. There must be a focus administratively to say the inner city must be taken forward. Yes, while we want to support the president in building these new cities that he wants to build, we shouldn't neglect the existing cities that we have. I mean, these places are called CBDs for a reason, because they're central business districts. They make it easy for someone who doesn't have much to be able to access economic opportunity without spending too much on transport. Vikas speaks about ownership. Yes, ownership is important, but in the inner city, if I have very little, it's very difficult for me to put my last cent and buy a unit, a sectional title unit in the inner city, and then I opt for rental, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the reason people don't want to invest is because, as you know, the property fundamental of location matters. So if my investment has to increase in value, I have to make sure that it's in the right location. It discourages people to then invest in buying a home in the inner city because of those reasons. But we are saying the rental approach works. It works because it's an economic asset for a person who then is able to rent and access other economic opportunities easily, because transport and everything is easily available. I mean, for us, we have simple reasons why we think the inner cities work. We have existing infrastructure. You're using existing stormwater drainage systems, existing sewer systems, existing buildings that you can convert, repurpose for accommodation and small business offices or retail spaces. So you have that infrastructure already there. So let's use that. And you also have a multi-sector economy in the inner city because it's a central business district. So you would have universities, you will have government, local government, provincial government offices where people can get employment. You have banking sector, head office of ABSA, you have Bank City for FNB, etc., available in the inner city. Mining companies and manufacturing and the services industry are all available in the inner cities for people to access work opportunities. But, you know, over the years, we started seeing some of the bigger ones starting to move out to the north because of these issues that I speak of crime and grime. And I think that I'm honestly just appealing that the city should take the strategic partnerships that are being offered by private sector players, such as the Johannesburg Partnership, such as JPOMA, which is an association of developers who own assets in the inner city, who are now wanting to take urban management issues into their own hands. And I think they can go further if they walked that road a bit more sustainably year on year without any changes as soon as we get a new political head.
Some very interesting points that Lusanda has there for you, Mayor. I'm going to ask you what you think about those, and also just, something that you mentioned. You said that, since, its inception, this City Generation program, there are pockets of, excellence. You look at Maboneng, but also, the inner city is still in a bad state. What is it that goes wrong? And what is it that the city is doing to make sure that, there's sustainability in keeping those areas safe, keeping criminal elements away, keeping the areas clean to make the areas appealing for investment? What is it that the City of Johannesburg is doing to cultivate the environment so that that fresh capital comes in?
Indeed, Lusanda makes excellent points. I fully agree with her. And I would like to say that we indeed are committed ourselves to those partnerships that they've been in there for some time. We just have to strengthen them. We've gone through different phases of partnerships and ensuring that the inner city becomes what it was before. We know that it can't go back to its former glory, but I like the words she used, that we repurpose the inner city for a different economy, a multi-sectoral economy that has since changed. Look, our focus in the inner city is a transformed inner city. We've got certain pillars that we push. We want to build an inclusive inner city. I fully agree with Lusanda. We need to build a city, an inner city where people can live, work, and play in peace, where there's crime, I think, of the past. We'd like to build another, as a pillar, a productive city, so that people coming to the inner city be very productive and ensure that we can grow the city, not just get it into a state of decay. We need to sustain the city. A sustainable city is part of the core principles of what pushes us, in partnership with the organization that she mentions, in partnership with the contractors and the developers in the inner city. Now, safety and cleanliness, crime are actually a deterrent of investment in the city. I can tell you that we have 3 or 4 shifts of pick it up, make it clean in the city. We have to change the mindset of the hawkers, of the informal traders in the city, and we're putting what you call bobbies on the beat. Our Joburg 10 plus police, 10 police people plus bylaw enforcement officers, inspectors, building controls, environmental health officers. Every aspect of bylaw enforcement must be in the inner city, in all the 18 wards in the inner city, just to ensure that we push back crime. Because if we don't win that battle, I can see the inner city not improving at all. And we are committed to doing that. As I say, our IOC, our Intelligent Integrated Operations Center, it's fully functional now. We just have to get intelligent cameras. We are installing them. We do have a project going to help the bobbies on the beat, to help the police to identify, with facial recognition, with behavioral analysis, to see how people are behaving in the inner city. Our plainclothes police people that are all over the city, we doing that block by block to push back crime. And lastly, we have a pillar called the well-governed inner city. We as Region F, it's part of our Region F inner city. We putting together with our councillors a governance structure that will interact together with business, together with all the partners, together with the taxi associations, that all associations in the inner city, to make this place a much better place. Now, that's the main inner city core, which has the largest concentration of infrastructure. Now, we can't leave that infrastructure and not use it optimally. In that instance and in that case, I fully agree with Lusanda that this inner city, to ensure livability, we have to invest in. And we are fully committed as a city to do that. In the office of the mayor, we do have an inner city desk, fully staffed. They are interacting with the inner city project. They're interacting with inner city partners, the inner city stakeholders. And on my behalf, they do it on a daily basis. So I do have on my dashboard what is exactly happening in the inner city. That dual city development that we refer to, the link with Maboneng, how do we push back to link with the Absa precinct, to link back with the Carlton Center, into the Gandhi Square, into Bank City, into the former mine, into the mining area where the mining head offices are. How do we retain them in the inner city? Because most of them, because of crime, they tend to move to Rosebank, they tend to London, and you really want them to live in the inner city, want them to work in the inner city, want the inner city to be what it used to be. I must say that we really are appreciative of the investment and the work done by Lusanda and the team at TAF, and all other property owners that are in the inner city who continue to believe in the inner city, put money in the inner city, including that moving into Braamfontein and turning it into a student city, linking Wits with UJ. Grahamstown is a student city because of roads. Braamfontein, we want to turn it into that. Turn some of the derelict buildings into student accommodation, of which I know that they do fund together with other partners. And we do appreciate as the City of Johannesburg the partnership that they have and the investment and the trust and the faith that they have in the inner city. Of course, others are building other inner cities like Jabulani. It's in the ward that I was born in, Ward 34 in Soweto. So as I see the change, as I see the improvement, as I see how Jabulani is turning into a business node, one is appreciative that there's investment from developers in Kanyeli, Calgro M3 and others. So we have to move that to Randburg, right into Windsor, Cresta area, Windsor East, Windsor West. The decay of the hijacked buildings, the crime there, we need to reverse it. If you move to Rodiport, exactly the same case. If you move towards Midrand, where the Boulders shopping center is, if we don't defend that area, it's going to go into a state of decay as well. So that focus that we have as a City of Johannesburg is such that we need to defend our city. We can't lose our city. We have to regenerate the city to be a world-class African city, the City of Johannesburg.
Indeed, Mayor, you mentioned Rhodes University. I actually went there and they really do have a good model in terms of student accommodation. Now, Vickers, I just want to know about your role in student accommodation. I know that there's a project that is in the pipeline at UWC in the Western Cape. Any prospects for student accommodation in Gauteng?
Yeah, thanks. So I'll first answer the question. Calgro is not a company that will own student housing. Contrary to the sender's earlier comment, we don't need money. We need all the money we can get, especially in the current economic environment where I think we have to respect the process just slow. And you asked earlier on the effect of COVID. Maybe the biggest effect of COVID wasn't necessarily the construction or the infrastructure phase. Maybe it's an approval phase. The mayor's face of a challenge where a big part of his office only work every second day to apply social distancing, because the City of Johannesburg just don't have enough administrative offices to apply social distancing with everyone coming into the office. We're hampered by DEECH offices and COVID cases and the like. So I think from that perspective, we at this stage have abandoned, you would have remembered that a few years ago we started a rental business because he's selling that out. We've abandoned that business model just because of cash intensity. And we believe we can make a bigger difference with spending that money in developing properties, which is our core expertise. So we basically went back there. And the project with UWC is a project for UWC. It's on our Ballard property in Cape Town, just behind the international airport there. There's more student housing coming, and we're speaking to various institutions to develop student housing for them. We do believe that we can develop and build student housing more affordable than, if I may say so, most out there, because of our expertise developed over the years in the really low end of the market. We specialist affordable and gap housing developers. So therefore, each and every cent counts. This is not a market, if you look at our profit margin, where you do the normal 30% margins. We really have to work hard on efficiencies on our construction sites, and therefore we do have a room to play. And there might be one or two transactions in the making. Maybe just go back to a few comments that was made. I think the biggest challenge that we currently have, and again, it's maybe brought about by COVID, is to streamline, as Danda said, the approval process. And there's a lot of work going into that approval process, but getting different departments speaking to one another and running a lot of processes concurrently. And then I have to compliment TUF, and what Lucinda haven't touched on is TUF's biggest funding base is they specialize to fund people that normal commercial banks won't fund for whatever reason. They're prepared to take a bit more credit risk. And that's really a space where there's a lot of room to be played in. She will know that even ourselves, as Kelra said, but how can we, if you look at our local labor, if you look at our local component, we use more than 70% local labor on most of our sites. How can we get some of those people self-developing and self-sustainable and sufficient to have a job even post working for Calgro, people we train? And that's where TUF is really playing a good role. Just to touch on it, sorry, going back.
Of course, and I'm glad that you mentioned some of those hurdles. We do need to talk about regulation, of course, because the mayor is here and he can address those. Lusanda, I just want to come to you. Are there any regulatory hurdles that you are experiencing in terms of providing funding to your members?
No, not necessarily. It's not hurdles as such. It's obviously just some of the frustrations with having to comply, but we do teach our clients that these are some of the things that are necessary to combat money laundering, etc. For instance, FICA is one of the biggest frustrations that people have to submit the necessary documents and the necessary proof that we are dealing with the right person. Because in terms of FICA, you have to know your client and they have to be able to produce the necessary supporting documents to prove who they are. So I think it's more frustrations than it is that it's not possible to achieve. I think that the regulatory challenges we have, over time they've become better. COVID has put a span on it a little bit. It's the planning approval processes with the city. They do take long, particularly if you do want to get a rezoning approved, etc. So those things take long and they can be quite expensive for a small developer who's trying to get a 20-unit development going, and they have to, comply with these requirements. We understand this is important, but I think the length of time that it takes, and we end up seeing people, starting to build without having their plans in place, which is problematic. And I think the city just needs to relook at those processes and how they can fast track, because the time it takes is a cost directly to a small developer. Big developers sometimes are able to absorb those delays. So that's the only thing. In Soweto, we are amazed by how quickly the city is responding with plan approvals. They are quite supportive of seeing densification in Soweto. So most of our projects so far, we've never seen it in the inner city, have their plans approved and have occupancy certificates given in like 9 months. This is record. This is, we are so impressed. We just wish that it can continue like that even in townships. Obviously, with people working from home, the town planners at the city, it's difficult sometimes to, when you have a big plan to submit, you can't obviously scan it in, and sometimes people are not in the office. So there are those little frustrations that are COVID induced, but I've been speaking to city officials. They are committed to streamlining and fast tracking that. So that's working well so far. But I do think that, when it comes to the inner city, Randburg CBD, Roodepoort CBD, there are still delays when it comes to those processes of rezoning. And we are just appealing that the city should look at that. One of the other things, obviously, that's always been repeated is this issue of billing. Most of our clients are saying we are willing, because one of the things we pride ourselves on is that we want to turn around buildings that are run down so that we can contribute directly to the fiscus. Because if we turn around a building that was hijacked, that was not collecting utilities, that was not paying rates and taxes, we now convert it. It's now fully occupied by people who are paying rent. Our client is able to pay his rates and taxes to the city, but he then gets a frustration that his electricity and water bill is an estimate and it's not correct, and there's these charges that are not explainable. And we insist, because for us, when we say to our clients, you have to pay all your operating costs first, rates and taxes, security guards, cleaners, your utilities, before you service our bond, because that's important to us, that they are good citizens, if I can put it that way. But, if you don't have the right bill at the end of the month, it's difficult to keep that going well. So we appealing as well to the city to look at that, expedite that. Obviously, the issue of utility costs that are rising quite a lot. I mean, when you are providing affordable housing, it's important that if the unit is for 2,500 a month, the tenant who then have to end up paying 1,500 in water and electricity takes his or her rental to 4,000 a month. It's very difficult for someone whose household income is up to, say, 15,000 rands a month. So we are saying to the city, those charges, they need to be relooked. I don't know what the plan is and how far. I know that a lot of conversations have been put on the table. So I'm just simply, because fortunately, we have the mayor here with us to say this is something that needs to be looked at quite quickly, because it does discourage investment. It does discourage people renting in inner city because they then end up subletting and overcrowding in units so that they can afford. This reverses the gains that we are making to regenerate. Because if you're trying to regenerate a unit to provide to someone to stay as a family, 2-3 people, they end up staying as 2 families in a 1-bedroom just to afford the utilities, and just it reverses the regeneration efforts. So that's what I would say when it comes to those things. But I must admit that a lot is being, I mean, there's a lot of committed officials who are listening, hearing. It's moving slowly, but they are working with us literally, sometimes just to listen to our frustrations. That it also helps.
Of course, and like that you say that you target entrepreneurs that want to turn around rundown buildings. Tough says in their site, we see opportunities where others see decline. Now, off to you, Mayor. There's a lot of excitement about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So with that, I mean, cities will be competing for foreign direct investment, not only across nations, but also domestically. How do we see the City of Johannesburg positioning itself to be the preferred destination for this foreign direct investment?
Indeed, naturally, we welcome. We are part of the conversations of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. We want the Joburg city, especially because of the movement of people between the SADC countries and Johannesburg. We think we are well positioned, and we are in the process to market ourselves as a destination. Hence, we started building what we call the Johannesburg Intermodal Transport Facility here in Johannesburg, which links. It's a transport modal facility for transnational transport. You know, moving people to Zimbabwe, Malawi, to Mozambique, goods and services as well. So Joburg is a center of the economy, and I think we are well positioned. We have plans to start marketing ourselves as a premier investment destination. But if we don't do the right things that Lusanda and Veka speak about, we won't be able to attract that investment. We have to address the issues of billing. We think that we've broken the back of billing. It's an issue of affordability by our clients in the main, but it doesn't mean that there are no problems. We're continuing to work on those problems. I mean, the administrative costs, economic costs are continuing to rise because of the input costs. I mean, if Eskom increases their price of electricity, we on pass the cost to the customer. Rand, we buy water from Rand Water, and depending on the prices that they charge us, we pass on the costs to the customers, and that makes the whole bill a bit more unaffordable for especially the lowly paid and the lowly paid customers and stuff. So it's something that we continue to engage, something that we continue to look at. But as it relates to investments, you can see that most of the money is moving northwards. It's moving towards Waterfall, it's moving to Rosebank, it's moving to Sandton, which is fine, creating new nodes, new precincts, new economic zones. However, we believe that there's still a lot of investment that has to come, that we must attract into the inner city and all other inner cities, because we believe that we have to maximize the use, optimize the use of the infrastructure that's in the inner city. We do have a fast-tracking committee where we do have a cutting the red tape process in the city. so that the issues of the rezoning, the issues of the planning processes, township establishments, certificates of occupancies, etc., etc. The entire planning cycle can be done in a short space of time. We do talk to province for the brownfields and the greenfields, so that the EIAs should be shortened. The period should be shortened from 3 years to around a year. And I know that province is doing those shortening of periods. And together, as a Gauteng city region, working together to ensure that we attract investment to Johannesburg, and of course it will be in Gauteng, in what they call a central corridor. And lastly, we are in a process of automating our building application system. We believe that from drawing on the computer, submission, and all the processes that they've got to do with building applications, if they are automated, it will cut down a whole lot of time. It will save time. It will cut down the red tape, and the turnaround time of approvals would be much quicker. And that in its own will encourage investment, will encourage the developers to invest, and it will quicken the investment on the ground, therefore creating employment, and people who are employed, then they can create what you call an economic multiplier, and the economy can start thriving. So the city is geared towards doing all it can to ensure that we as the residents of Johannesburg get the benefit of a world-class African city.
Indeed, a very robust conversation on building back better and also just recovery when it comes to the inner city generation program. That's where we'll have to leave it for today. I want to thank my guests who joined me here via Zoom. That's the Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Jeffrey Makubo, Vikas Latakhan, the CEO of Colgrow M3, and Lusanda Nechitenze, the Development Impact Executive at TAF. Thank you very much for joining us on the CNBC Africa special program. From me, Zinati Guma, it's goodbye for now.